Welcome to this edition of the Weekly Dose, Challenge Your Perspective. This is Patrick Dare in Washington, D.C. The election of November 26th. I'm sorry, it's been a long day, and we've had technical problems, and therefore kind of a little frazzled, but I will start over again. The election that is for October 26th will not happen. Well, it will happen because Uhuru and Ruto wants it to happen. But it will not be fair, free, and credible. It will not be. If this election happens and Uhuru and Ruto get installed, they will have installed dictators. This is dictatorship in the making. And Uhuru and Ruto must be stopped completely. They must be stopped from taking us back to places that we don't want to be. We've already seen the fununus of what the next term of Uhuru and Ruto would be. And this cannot happen. And if you want to know that really, if this election happens, it will be an installation of dictatorship in the country, just see what has happened in the last week. One of the commissioners resigned and left the country. She had pretended to go and look at the ballot papers and make sure that they have been printed, and left. She felt threatened. And this is what she says. She says that, and I will quote her, she says, commissioners and senior staff at the Secretariat are put in line through bribery and threats. If you don't agree with them, your life is in danger. You can't doubt that. If Musando was around, you'd ask him, but you know what happened to Musando. We got the same word from the chairman, Mr. Chebukati. He is the returning officer. And he said that this election, given the circumstance in which he has been operating, if we go to this election as it is, he cannot guarantee that it would be fair, free, and credible. He is the chief returning officer saying that. He is the head of the IEBC. So how can anybody in their rightful mind think that we're going to have the election and that a winner is going to emerge? This election should not happen. Mr. Chebukati, you're worried about your legacy, and you're saying you don't want to see Kenya burn on your watch. Now, if you go ahead with this election and for some reason Uhuru and Ruto are installed, you may just want to see that day come where this country will burn. And for what? The Constitution allows you to postpone this election, and then the election would be held in another 90 days, within 90 days, under a caretaker government. And that's where, Mr. Chebukati, you have the authority to do it. But I must go back and think about, why are things happening the way they are happening? I think Mr. Chebukati is in a very bad position. What they usually say, between a rock and a hard place. There's a gun put to his head that you must go ahead with this election. And yet he really sees disaster. So what choice does he have? I don't know what choice you would have if you were in this man's shoes. Do you take the bullet for the country, or do you save your skin? It's a tough question. But Mr. Chebukati, this, at tough times, we need you to have a spine. We need you to make sure that the election that happens in this country under your watch is an election that the whole country is involved. You're already throwing out there some options about counties that cannot vote because of violence or whatever reason, that they could vote later. Come on now. You know that that is not tenable. Now, we must ask ourselves the question, why is Uhuru and Ruto so much bent on having this election? I will give you my theories. One, Mr. Uhuru promised Ruto the Kikuyu vote come 2022, and he must deliver. He must deliver because Ruto is telling him, you promised. I gave you all the Kalenjins, and you must deliver. And so if they go to a free and fair election, there's no guarantee that Uhuru will win. And therefore, he cannot deliver what he promised. And so they have to have this election and they have to rig it. Of course, the Supreme Court already said that it was rigged. And they're ready to rig it again. There's no question that this election will be as rigged as the one before. We've seen the main culprit that has been mentioned, Mr. Chiloba resigning. Come on. Who are you fooling? You've probably put everything in place. It's already done. The train is out of the station. And then you say, I'm going on leave. Now, the second part of it, I would guess, why they have to win. This government has been seen as the most corrupt government ever. They've borrowed the most money in the shortest time ever. In 10 years of Kibaki and the coalition government then, they did not borrow as much as this government borrowed in 5 years. And there's nothing to show for it except the big scandals of the Eurobond, the NYS, the standard gauge rail, and many more things. So they must be afraid that if another government comes in, they will be held to account. And they can't have that. I don't know about whether there is a statute of limitation within the ICC. And I don't know whether they're thinking in their mind, if another government comes, well, the cases were merely suspended. I suspect that maybe they're thinking far ahead. If Uhuru wins, not win actually, if Uhuru is installed, he becomes an iron fist ruler at this point. And he does everything that he has to do to make sure that in 2022, Ruto wins. And then Ruto will make sure that thereafter he wins another term. And who knows, maybe they'll throw the baton back to another Kikuyu or to another Kalenjin. And therefore they're protected indefinitely. That's just my theory. But you must wonder, why are these people so much not seeing what's happening? That they're taking us back to the days, the dark days of Moi and the first Kenyatta, when you could not even think adversely about a president. We've seen police killing innocent Mwananchi, who is just demonstrating to show their anger. Police shooting to kill. Homes of private citizens being raided for what? And now this Mr. Matiang'i man completely disregards what the Constitution allows, and is banning demonstrations. Now, can you imagine what will happen if these two are installed and Matiang'i being the internal security guy going forward? You have not seen anything yet. I can promise you that. We are headed the ways of very bad times. And if you think the economy is bad right now, wait till this happens. The Kenyans, we must stand up. We must stand up, and I'm going to quote here again Mr. Mandela. What Mr. Mandela said about real leaders. Real leaders must be ready to sacrifice all for the freedom of their people. These two are not real leaders. You must look the other way, the NASA side. Those are people who are ready to sacrifice, and they're asking their people to sacrifice for this nation, for the future of this nation. Kenyans, we've come a long way, and this is not the time that we allow these two people, for whatever reason, want to install themselves by force. This is now by force. It's not an election. They may have something resembling, they may have ballot papers taken throughout the country, but it's not an election. It is a process of installing a dictator. That's what it is. You want to call it election just because you support Jubilee? Go ahead. But it's not. Deep down, you know that what the Constitution says, that this election needed, the IEBC needed to put in place corrections that would guarantee a free, fair, and credible election. And this election cannot be credible. Now, there's a saying, quote, when a man is denied the right to live the life he believes in, he has no choice but to become an outlaw. The people of Kenya believe that they need to be free. And that's a desire that will drive them to be outlaws. The government is gutting the Constitution. What does the population have to do? What do they have to do to protect themselves when the government unleashes the police on them and beats them for demonstration? Young children being killed because of what? A boy that is going to get some ice cream. A child that has nothing to do with the demonstration is killed. Baby Mpendo. An old lady who's merely in the line of the police, shot and injured. For what? so that these two people can be president and vice president, and so that they can assure the next presidency within the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin for so long a time that nobody knows when it would end. Now, as I said, everybody has a right to support whatever party. But that party must not impose itself on the people on the account that they have supporters. An election is something that must be done throughout the country. And for those counties that do not want to participate in this election, the law allows you not to. It's within the Constitution. And you must fight on. You must fight on. Yes, blood will be spilled. That is guaranteed because these people are smelling blood. They're smelling blood and they don't mind spilling it. And Matiang'i will leash out his men to do the dirty work of the government. But the likes of Matiang'i must remember that Kenya is here to stay, and one time Matiang'i will be out. What then? As I've said before, this Kenya is bigger than any one individual. It's bigger than Raila, bigger than Ruto, bigger than Uhuru. And this is not about Raila. This is about the country. He just happens to be spearheading a position that keeps us in the right path. And that right path is democracy and freedom and an election that is credible. An election that the Supreme Court of the land directed that it must be credible. And to sum up, I think that the Supreme Court, you still have the mandate to carry out what is right. If these two are installed and the opposition comes to you, you must do the right thing again. You've already set history, but it does not stop there. It's a tough road ahead. This is a time that calls for everybody to stand up and be counted. And those, the good people that sit on the edge, remember that when this happens, you will not be spared. So you must stand with the right side of the equation. Don't allow this manipulation of a people while impoverishing them, while killing them, and telling them that you're the best thing that's going to happen to Kenya and being installed. Everybody must stand up. And Mr. Uhuru must be told, Kenya does not belong to you. I know you see your father on the money. The two of you are acting like Kenya belongs to you, the two of you. It does not. Kenya belongs to everybody. And all Kenyans have a right to choose a leader through the right way. So be it. If you're elected the right way, in the proper election that is guaranteed to be free, fair, and credible, so be it. You will be the president. But in this case, October 26th, you cannot be the president of Kenya. You cannot be. And that is my perspective. For my viewers, what's yours? Please, when you see my video, please comment. All comments, as I've said before, are welcome, because these are my views. I respect your view. But we must have this discussion. We must think what is the right way of doing things. And the right way of doing things is to make sure that this election not be an installment of a dictatorship. We cannot allow that. And I will respect your view. And please, the Kenyans, don't touch another Kenyan just because of this. Don't, as it's been called out, there are Kikuyus among the Luos doing business in Lowland. There are Luos everywhere, and there are Kalenjins everywhere. There are other tribes, Kambas, Giriamas, Luyas, everywhere throughout the country. You cannot suddenly turn against your neighbor that you've known for a long time, that you've drunk with, that you've laughed with, just because of this political sham, the sham of election that is facing us. Thank you. This is Patrick Dare in Washington, D.C.